as a result, you believe he's innocent.
I do.
And you understand, and you think you're leaning that way right now, right? Or you're not leaning. You actually believe it, as you stated. He's innocent.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, and that's based on what you saw on TV and read in the newspaper.
Right.
Okay. And I gather, did you listen to other people commenting about it too?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and did that help in formulating your opinion that you believe he's innocent?
Well, people are going to say what they want.
Right.
You know, you think what you feel is right.
And you came to that belief as a result of what you saw on TV and read in the newspaper. If you could tell me what were some of the reasons why you came to that conclusion that he was innocent?
The injuries that George had.
Okay, tell me about the injuries as best you can.
Well, I know that he had bloody nose. I know that his head was cut in different places. And I also know that Trayvon really wasn't beat up like that. I know that he was learning how to be a street fighter.
That who was learning how to be a street fighter?
Trayvon was.
And where did you come to that conclusion?
Just from the news.
What news do you remember specifically saying that Trayvon was learning to be a street fighter?
Well, nobody directly said that. It was just pictures that they'd shown.
Which pictures did you see about?
I saw pictures of him refereeing a fight.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's what it appeared to be. And
how did you know it was him?
Because he was identified in the picture.
Who identified?
Whoever. I'm not sure who identified him.
Was it somebody commenting about it? In other words, like an attorney? Or was there an attorney commenting about it?
Whoever was talking about it on TV, probably a news commentator.
Okay, so you saw a video that alleged that...
No, I didn't see a video.
Oh, okay. So
it was pictures.
So there was pictures of two individuals having a fight?
No, there were, it looked like 3 people in the picture. It looked like 2 people were getting ready to fight, and there was a person in between them, maybe off to the side a little bit, you know, getting ready to pull them together to fight.
And then the commentator said that was Trayvon Martin?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall the commentator's name that said that?
No, I don't.
Was it a TV commentator, or was it like a so-called expert or lawyer or somebody else that was not the newscaster?
It was someone on TV.
Okay, somebody
I'm not exactly sure who it was.
Okay. Was it somebody that they were interviewing, in other words?
I'd seen Mark Meejane being interviewed.
Okay, he's an attorney in town. As a commentator, he was the one that was commenting about it.
He was interviewed on Channel 13,
okay.
off and on.
And
I don't know if it was him that said that or not.
Okay, but somebody like that, a commentator, was saying that this was a fight involving individuals and that was Trayvon Martin.
It was either a newscaster or someone they had on that they were talking with.
Okay, all right. And in terms of, I apologize, you were still going. You were telling me about the bloody nose, and then you said something about his head, right?
Yeah, and there was blood on his clothing.
Okay. Now, what blood did you see on I'm assuming you're talking about Mr. Zimmerman's clothing?
Yes.
Okay, where was the blood on his clothing that you saw?
I think I remember seeing some on the back of his collar and down the back of his shirt.
Do you recall what that attire, what would it look like? What was it?
No, I don't. I remember I think it was something that had a collar, but other than that, I don't recall.
And was that a video or a photograph you saw of him?
A photograph, I believe.
And was that recently or at the time back in February when this crime occurred?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, all right. Tell me what else you saw that caused you to arrive at your decision that George Zimmerman is innocent.
Well, I'm aware of the fact that Trayvon had been smoking marijuana.
And how did you learn that?
From TV.
Okay. Was that a commentator too, or was that a report, or?
It could have been in the newspaper also, either one of those places. Okay. And that there were pictures on his phone of him smoking, and that was on TV. And there was also a picture of a gun
Okay.
that was taken off of his cell phone too.
Right.
And that tells me that smoking pot, getting involved in guns, learning how to street fight. I mean, I know his family loved him. I know they did. And I think that he probably had just started getting in with a wrong crowd, and his family wasn't aware of it. And, he was going down the wrong path. And things were just escalating for that young man in a
Right.
bad way.
So you felt it really wasn't his parents' fault, that he just kind of went that way, Trayvon Martin, in other words, that he decided to get into street fighting, decided to start carrying a gun, I guess, right?
Well, I don't know that he was carrying a gun.
Well, you mentioned that he had a gun.
I mentioned that there was a picture of a gun on his phone.
On his phone.
So that's an indicator that he's interested.
Sure. And you believe that was him holding the gun?
No, I don't know that for a
Oh, okay.
fact.
Well, then, how did that impact you in terms of saying that he was the one that was involved in obviously getting into this incident with Mr. Zimmerman, and Zimmerman is innocent?
Well, if the boy is smoking pot, he's interested in guns, he's learning how to fight, he's going down the wrong path, then it seems to me that, he's just looking for a reason to fight, and he's confronted by someone who's trying to protect their neighborhood, who's just watching out for, somebody who looks suspicious.
Okay.
And the boy is confronted, and, he's already got drugs in his system, or he could have been high even then,
Right.
and he got aggressive.
Did you believe he also, Trayvon Martin, was carrying a gun that night?
No, I don't think he was carrying a gun that night, because I think if he was, then everyone would have known that by now.
Oh, okay. And what other things caused you to come to your conclusion that, or opinion that George Zimmerman is innocent?
Well, I think George was just trying to protect his neighborhood. He saw something out of place. He called the police. He confronted the boy. Or maybe, you know what, maybe he did not. I think that the boy saw George watching him, and I'm not sure if the boy confronted George or not. I'm not sure about that.
So you believe it may have been Trayvon Martin that went and confronted George Zimmerman?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
I don't know that for
Okay.
sure.
Now, I gather you did not know, you kept referring to him as George Zimmerman is who you're talking about, right?
Right.
You didn't know him prior to this? I'm
No.
assuming. Okay. What else have you heard regarding, or what else caused you to arrive at your conclusion that Mr. Zimmerman is innocent?
Basically what I told you.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Is there anything that you saw that made you believe that maybe he's guilty?
No.
Okay, nothing?
No.
Okay, what else did you hear about George Zimmerman, if anything?
That's basically
Okay.
it, really.
Did you watch any of the court proceedings?
Yes, I did.
Okay, were you one of those individuals that kind of catches on or latches onto a case and kind of follows the case and is interested?
No,
Okay, and how did it come about that you watched the court proceedings?
because I knew that I had received the jury summons.
Oh, okay, so you got the jury summons and you decided, let me watch to see what's going on so I know what the heck was going on, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty much.
that's fine, that's a normal thing that somebody might do.
Yeah.
So you got the summons about 3 or 4 weeks ago that you said, let me pay attention to what's going on in court. In
Yeah.
case I'm asked something, I can say I know something about the case, right?
Otherwise, this is not the type of thing that I would really pay attention to on a
Gotcha.
daily basis.
So in terms of the opinion that you came to, was that at the beginning or was that recently after you got further immersed into the case?
No, it was right away.
Okay, so
I
you're,
felt that right away.
and would you agree that those opinions that we form at the beginning are usually the opinions that we stick to throughout?
Unless there's evidence that changes your mind,
Right?
then,
It's kind of hard to erase when
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I was trying to write down what she was saying, and I didn't think she was done.
I apologize, I thought she was. Did I interrupt you, ma'am? Were you done?
No, I'm done.
She was done? So those opinions that you formulate at the beginning, those are usually the lasting opinions, would you agree?
Yeah, usually,
Right.
usually, unless there's something that you don't know about that comes forth.
Now, what happens if the opinions we come to, or you came to, in life, are based on stuff that's not true? What do you do that? How do you erase that from your mind? You think it's possible to erase it from your mind?
No, you don't erase it from your mind. You just, I consider myself better educated.
Sure.
You know, I've been educated in the truth.
Okay. But you're not just, you didn't have the opinion, you were pretty adamant about your opinion. I mean, it's pretty firm is what I'm trying to say,
Yes,
right?
my opinion is
Would you
pretty
agree?
firm. It is
It's
firm.
not like you're like on the fence. You're
Unless something is shown to me that erases all doubt from my mind, then my mind is made up.
Your mind is made up. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, any other aspects of the case that you think are important in letting us know in terms of helping you formulate your opinion, or anything about the case itself that you think is important for us to know? Both sides.
I don't know. I can't
Okay.
think.
What did you think? You mentioned that Trayvon Martin. What else did you learn about Trayvon Martin from the news? Anything else you can recall?
I know that his mom loved him a great deal.
Okay.
I mean, she took him skiing, horseback riding.
Right.
She was active in his life, and they were a family unit, but his father wasn't present,
Okay.
which is hard for a boy.
Sure. Did you think that was a reason why he, in your opinion, turned out the way he did?
I grew up without a father.
Okay.
So
you didn't hold
I
that.
think that has a lot to do, you know, when a boy is growing up, he needs that influence.
Sure. So you felt that may have in some way have impacted, in your opinion, why he turned out the way he did? You mentioned a gun and smoking and et cetera.
Yeah, I think that had something to do
Sure.
with it. If his dad was there or if a male
Sure.
figure was there on a regular basis, I think that he may not have gotten involved with other boys that led him astray.
How did you come to that conclusion that his father was not there on a regular basis? Where did you arrive at that fact?
Well, the picture that was out of Trayvon the most that I remember seeing is him of 12 years old. And then other pictures started coming out, and I had learned that these were pictures that his mother provided an attorney, I think, from his memorial service. And I remember hearing that his father was asked for recent pictures, and he said he didn't have any.
And you saw that on TV or read about it in the paper?
I think I saw that on TV.
Okay. And who said that on TV?
Oh, I don't know.
Was it a commentator?
It was Channel 13.
Okay, all right. Somebody on Channel 13.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you were when you were looking at the case, you were following both sides of it? In other words, you weren't just focusing on Trayvon Martin, I'm assuming, or were you?
No, I look at both sides.
Okay. You were looking at George Zimmerman too? Or were you? You mentioned the injuries to George Zimmerman. Anything else you remember reading or watching on TV about that said anything about George Zimmerman, other than what you've said already?
That he was very upset, probably anxious that he had gained some weight, and you know, you either gain weight or lose weight.
Sure.
When you're very upset.
Anything else that you remember about George Zimmerman in terms of from the time that this happened back in February till now that you read about in the paper or saw on TV?
That his family or he were trying to raise money for his defense.
Okay.
And that's about it, really.
Okay. You don't remember anything else? Because you mentioned you watched court proceedings. You don't remember anything about the court proceedings?
No, I'd have the TV on while I'm working around the house and doing things that's kind of background noise.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Well, I guess my question to you is, how come you have specific recollections about Trayvon Martin, but not that specific recollection about George Zimmerman? Is it because you already made up your mind in terms of that you felt Trayvon Martin was in the wrong and George Zimmerman was in the right?
There was a lot more personal information put out about Trayvon than I think there was about George.
Is that what you believe based on what you saw?
Yeah.
Okay. And that personal information that was put out, I'm assuming was all that just based on TV as opposed to the internet?
I don't get my news from the internet.
Okay. You didn't do any research on the case?
No. I check my email, I might look at the AOL homepage, there's not a
Okay.
whole lot
Okay.
on there.
I gather I know you recently obviously found out and then you did some more work, or you started paying attention. When you found out you got the summons, you started paying attention, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, what you did about that.
Well, I heard the judge say that the jury was not going to be sequestered.
Was not going to be sequestered. Okay.
Yes, and I sighed with relief.
So
And then the paper that I filled out said, if sequestered, I saw the word sequestered in there, and the walls in the room, that big room, the walls started to close in, and, I just want to sleep in my own bed at night.
I neglected to ask you about that because I can barely read it. It's not that you didn't write it legible, it's just that my copy, when they copied it, wasn't that legible. But I
Okay.
think you stated no, but then you threw out, or you put in some language there in terms of you may have some issues with being sequestered.
It makes me feel a little anxious. This whole case, for me personally, makes me feel anxious if I were to be a juror.
So in an ideal world, you would not want to be on this jury, I gather?
That's correct.
Okay. And is that because of everything you've already expressed already, and also possibility, in addition to that, that you may be sequestered?
Well, I would like to say that I think no matter what the outcome is with this, there's going to be somebody that's not going to be happy.
Okay.
There's going to be groups out there that aren't going to be happy, and I feel like I'm going to walk out of here with a bullseye on my back.
So you feel, in your opinion, that you might be a target and you would rather not serve on the jury because of that, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that true?
I just said that's
Okay.
correct.
I apologize.
That's
I
okay.
wasn't listening to your answer. Please accept my apologies. So would you agree then that you really couldn't be fair?
If I was chosen for this, which I really do not want to be, if I didn't have a choice and I had to be here, I would listen to everything and look at everything presented. And if you can change my mind, then that would be okay. But I believe that every American has a right to defend themselves, has a right if they're not mentally ill, if they don't have felony convictions, if they have nothing to prevent them from carrying a weapon. I think the more people armed, the better, because
Okay.
there's a lot of crime out there.
Yes, ma'am.
And when people are armed, then it just prevents so much.
So you believe in, as I do, in the Second Amendment right to bear arms,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
And you believe strongly in that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
I
Are there
do.
individuals that maybe, even though they have the right to bear arms, sometimes should not?
Yes,
Use a gun?
that is true.
Tell me some examples of those type of cases.
As long as we're clear that we're entering this realm, which we haven't before, this is
We're-
beyond publicity.
We're going beyond the free-for-all publicity.
I'll limit it to that, and she brought it up, so I'll be glad to stop
If
at
you
this time.
can.
The bottom line is, ma'am, isn't it, can you say without a doubt that you can set aside the opinions that you currently have and the knowledge you think you have heard about the case? Can you set those aside?
Yes,
You
if
think you can?
if I hear evidence that can definitely change my mind, then yeah,
What kind of evidence would you expect to hear that would change your mind?
I don't know.
Well, you've come in already with an opinion, correct?
Yes,
Okay. But yet you put that you believe you can set that aside, I think is what you said, unless I misread.
yes, well, I try to be a fair person,
But haven't you kind of made up your mind already?
From everything that I've seen and heard, yes.
And isn't it true that it'd really be difficult for you to change your opinion?
You'd have to work really hard to change my opinion.
I mean, we're being honest here, right? I would have to be like,
Yes.
I would have to work magic to change your opinion, would you agree?
If you feel that it would be magic, then okay.
I mean, I would have to go beyond the norm, right?
Your Honor,
I don't know what the
I
norm would
object
be here.
At this point, I understand the need for this inquiry, but if he's challenging the juror as though she knows what she
I would
doesn't
like
know.
counsel to approach the bench, please.
case.
Right, so even when you have family members who disagreed with you, you didn't even want to listen to their opinion because your opinion is pretty set.
No, I listen to what people have to say, but your mind is made up.
And you would agree that your mind is made up.
When it comes to carrying a weapon legally, yeah, my mind is made up with that.
And as a result, your also mind is made up in this case.
Well, he was carrying his weapon legally.
So your mind's made up that he's innocent.
I don't know everything. If you can prove to me differently, then do it.
Okay. Did you have any discussions with your husband, and again, I wouldn't mention what his position is, but you mentioned what it was, about coming to court and being a juror?
Of course,
Okay.
yes.
And did he tell you in terms of that you were going to be asked these kind of questions?
No, he did not.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying that's
He did
improper.
not.
We all live in this great country, and people are entitled to. And let me make sure you understand my question. I'm not talking about after Monday. I'm talking prior to Monday. I know you have followed, I'm
Right.
assuming, the
Yes.
court's admonitions.
Yes.
I'm not trying to say that you didn't. I'm talking about
I
prior to
followed
Monday.
what the judge asked me to.
Yes, I'm talking about prior to Monday.
Mhm.
You got the summons. You mentioned that you started getting more informed about the case, correct? Did I understand you
I
correctly?
tried, yeah.
Right, and what you did is you went on the internet, or I'm sorry, you didn't
No,
go on-
I did not go on the internet.
Where did you go to get more information?
I told you, the Sentinel and Channel 13.
And what do you recall at that time, what other further information did you obtain between the time you got your summons and now? What did you learn about the case?
Just what, the proceedings off and on that happened
Do you
here.
recall what the proceedings were about?
A lot of it was about the jury, I think, about
Do you-
whether they were going to be sequestered or not.
Okay. Anything else, any other proceedings that you recall?
Not that I recall at the moment.
Okay. You mentioned you discussed with your husband having jury service because he was home, right? And
Right.
what did he tell you about jury service?
He did not tell me anything.
You had-
We did not talk about this.
Okay, all right. What other than family members, have you discussed this case with friends too?
No,
Okay.
no.
About,
Well, I
cohort?
told one friend last night on the phone that I was going for jury duty, and then I said, I can't say anymore, and I handed the phone to my husband and left the room.
Sure, okay. Now, I gather when you first heard about the case, you read about it, or I'm sorry, you saw it on TV, and you read about it in the paper, you came to the conclusion that Mr. Zimmerman was innocent, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you do anything in furtherance of that? Did you contribute in any way to, if there was anything that can't, in other words, any signing of petitions to free him or to claim his innocence or money or anything like that?
No.
Why not?
I don't know, it just, there was never anything presented to me, and I knew that he was raising money, and, at the very beginning, I thought, gee, maybe I should send but I did not.
Okay. And the reason,
I don't know, I just didn't.
okay, sure. And the reason is because people could do it anonymously, so I'm just trying to find out if you did or not.
I did not.
Okay. Did you look up any of the websites dedicated to his cause?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you look up any of the websites that, like if a law firm representing him has a website, did you look at any of that stuff?
No, I did not.
Did you look at any of the websites dedicated to Trayvon Martin or his family?
No, I did not.
Okay. And was that on purpose?
No, it's just not something I would normally do.
So in other words, your conclusions or opinion in this case was just limited to the media aspect of it, the TV and the newspaper?
Yes.
Okay. Did you in any way think that either one of those, the media, I think you said what channel, right? You said what TV channel?
Channel 13.
Channel 13, or the Orlando Sentinel was biased one way or the other for or against Mr. Zimmerman?
I never felt that that there was bias there. I feel that Channel 13 is biased when it comes to government type of reporting, but I didn't pick any of that up with this.
Now, Ma'am, the issue of if the court were to consider possibly sequestering, that to you would be a definitely you could not do that, is that correct?
That's correct. Well, I would not be happy about that.
Okay. And your reasons are, and I don't mean to get into personal matters, but you have like work or kids or something that would prevent you from doing that?
No.
Okay, and you just don't
I just-
believe in spending the night somewhere else, is that correct?
Right. I
You
want
feel
to
uncomfortable
be,
with that?
I'm very uncomfortable with that.
Okay, and that would impact you being able to function as you normally do, would that be correct?
Well, I would feel very anxious about that.
Because we talked about, we don't know exactly what, but it may be 4 to 6 weeks. You don't think you can do that, right?
I really would rather not.
Is there anything else that you think the state should know? I know Mr. O'Mara or Mr. West, I believe it's Mr. O'Mara, will be having an opportunity to ask you questions. Is there anything else you need, we should know in terms of being fair?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So the bottom line is I would have to go through many hoops, not just prove beyond a reasonable doubt, in terms of proving this defendant guilty, correct?
You used the word magic.
I would need to do that.
I would need to see proof.
Okay. And what would you consider proof?
I don't
Same
know.
objection as before.
Sustained.
Now, you've heard certain things, such as you mentioned a gun, right? That you saw a picture, I think you said, that was attributed to Trayvon Martin, right?
From his cell phone.
And what happens if that evidence never comes into evidence? If, number one, that isn't true, somebody else's gun, or somebody else's picture, how would that factor into your decision here?
It's just not part of the case.
Okay, so you could just automatically disregard it and that would be erased from your mind?
It would not be erased from my mind,
Okay.
but it would not be part of the case
Okay.
at that point.
All right. Now, what happens if you also found out that Trayvon Martin was not in any, joining any fight or was in any fight club or whatever you described? What happened if that's not true either?
Then it's not part of the case.
Okay. What happens if that video that you saw wasn't Trayvon Martin at all, refereeing him?
I don't remember a video, I just saw
I'm
a
sorry,
picture.
photographs. I apologize, photographs. What happens if that's not Trayvon Martin there at all?
Then he's not in the picture.
Okay. But you can still be of the opinion that he's innocent, right? That George Zimmerman is innocent.
I believe he's a man who was defending himself.
Okay. What happens if the evidence showed the contrary, that he wasn't defending himself, that he's the one that attacked Trayvon Martin?
Then that's what the truth is,
And so you would find him guilty?
if that's the truth.
You would vote that he's guilty, even though he had a gun and he lawfully had a gun. If he's the one that attacked Trayvon Martin, you would find him guilty?
If you can
Your
prove
Honor,
that that's the truth.
I'm concerned that he seems
What
to.
is your speaking objection?
I'm sorry, the
Non-speaking
non-speaking
objection.
objection is that he's mischaracterizing the law and then asking this juror to assent to it.
Okay, sustained.
Further questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Mara.
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You want a few minutes?
I'm okay.
You okay? Purpose of what we're doing here today, right now, this is only a small portion of what we call jury selection, voir dire, and it's very limited. We'll have another opportunity to talk to you maybe another day. Today is to find out primarily what you know about and how, where you knew it from, and then what impact that would have on you. So I want to spend some time with that, and then I'm going to go into some of the issues that you brought up, okay? So as we talk about that, I do want you to focus on sort of what you heard, where you heard it from, all right? Now, you said that your main sources are Channel 13, is that correct?
Correct.
And the Orlando Sentinel, right?
Right.
Do you read the Sentinel every day?
Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay. Not the first couple of days of the week?
Right.
Okay. And Channel 13, is that your default station?
It is. When my TV goes on, that's the channel that comes up.
Yet another Bright House customer then, I imagine.
I'm a Danny Trainer fan.
Oh, okay. Been around a long, long time.
Mhm.
As this happened back in February 2012, and I think that you said that you had found out some information about this case early on, correct?
Correct.
And were those sources the same, Channel 13 and the Orlando Sentinel?
Yes.
When you first found out about this, did this case trigger something in you that made you really focus on it, or was this just a news event that you were listening to?
It was a news event that I was listening to, and my reaction was, oh my God, that's so sad
What do you mean that's so sad?
that someone died.
That Trayvon Martin passed?
Mhm.
Okay. Was your knowledge then limited to Channel 13 and the Orlando Sentinel? Your
Pretty
sources?
much, yeah.
And your husband's a former cop?
Yes.
Did you speak to him back in March, April 2012 when it started? Did you have a lot of conversations with him about this?
No, this was not, like a big part of our life.
Okay.
It's like any other news story. You kind of watch it and move on to the next story.
Did you focus on this case, for example, any more than when we heard about the Boston Marathon bombing?
No, I did not focus on this any more than
Okay.
I would have anything else.
Or the tragedy in the kindergarten up in the Northeast where the children were killed?
These things are all so tragic that I really, I don't want to focus on them.
Okay. So you did not specifically focus on this case any more than any other, what you call a tragedy?
Correct.
Okay. And you also mentioned in response to Mr. De Leon's questions that you would at least listen to other people when they would talk about this?
Yes.
And was that on the media or just friends of yours? Or?
Media,
Okay.
basically. I mean, if it came up at a family gathering or something, it's like anything else. You just move on.
Okay. Mr. De Leon asked you, I guess, if you had an initial impression or opinion concerning this event, and I think that you said you did. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in part, that was based upon the fact that from your understanding of the facts, you didn't think that George Zimmerman had done anything wrong. Would that be accurate?
Well, someone is shot and someone died. That's never a good thing. However, I do think that George was protecting himself.
Okay. And does that come from any predisposition that you bring into the case, or does that come from what you know from the media?
Well, from what I believe, even before the case, is I believe strongly in the castle doctrine here in Florida, and I think that's a good thing. I think that you should be able to defend yourself out in public.
Okay. So when you heard that George, in your interpretation of the reports, when you interpreted it to be that George was defending himself, then you think that his action in defending himself was okay? Would that be accurate?
If he felt that his life was in danger
Mm-hmm.
and he took that action, then I agree with that.
Okay. One of the questions that I'm going to ask you as we go through this, maybe a couple of times, is this. you believe that it's okay for someone to defend themselves if they think they're in danger. Is that what you just said?
If they think their life is in danger, then absolutely.
Okay. Let's just say that that's your belief. But let's just say that you're a person on this jury and the judge gives you an instruction that is different than that. The judge gives you just a different instruction. I'm not going to even suggest it. I just want to say that it's different than the belief that you come here with. Can you follow the judge's instruction on what the law is and how you should apply it?
I will do that to the best of my ability.
Okay. Do you think that ability would be impacted in a negative way by your thoughts that were different from the law, or would you be able to accept her interpretation and application of the law?
I would try to do what the judge is asking me to do.
Okay. And Mr. Rionda also asked you then if your opinion was such that you would make him perform magic.
He's the one who used that word, not me.
That's why I said it was his word and not yours. Do you have an understanding in our criminal justice system that a citizen accused is presumed innocent?
Yes, I do.
Do you think that's appropriate?
Not in all cases.
Okay. Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, there are when you're arrested, the law is that you should be assumed innocent until you're proven guilty. If the evidence is beyond doubt that you're guilty, then you're guilty.
Okay. You okay with the premise, though, that it's the state of burden to prove guilt and that it's not Mr. Zimmerman's burden to prove anything?
Objection
Yes.
is the form of the question, incorrect statement of the law.
Sustained.
I'll move on without arguing whether or not that's the correct interpretation, but okay, I'll move on. Do you agree, do you have any problem with the concept, with this idea that you think Mr. Zimmerman might be innocent and Mr. DeLeon is concerned that he has to perform magic? Do you have any concern with the state having to carry the burden of proving Mr. Zimmerman's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt?
Well, the truth is the truth. There's no magic to it.
If Mr. Rionda, the state, was able to convince you, present evidence to you that contradicts what you think happened, what would you do?
If he can prove to me that it's the truth, then I would accept that.
So let's say that you think that the evidence supports, I'll make something up,
Okay.
that there was a red car involved. Okay? That's what you think happened. You maybe even seen a picture of it. Yet the evidence comes out to show that it's actually a blue car. Okay? You think it's a red car, evidence shows it's a blue car. Which one do you follow?
The one that can be proved.
The one that's proven in evidence, or what you thought it might have been before you got here?
The one that's proven in evidence.
Okay. So would you agree with the concept that whatever you heard outside this courtroom, particularly concerning the facts of the case, has to stay outside the courtroom?
Well, I understand that some things that I may have heard are just people talking.
Okay. Well, let me ask you something specifically. You saw a photograph that gave you the impression that Trayvon Martin was refereeing a fight, correct?
Yes.
Let's just say that that photograph, anything about Trayvon Martin and fighting, let's just say that that doesn't come into evidence. At the end of the case, the judge is going to say to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm paraphrasing, I'm going to try and get it close. You've now heard all the evidence. There is no other evidence. You now will decide this evidence only on the facts that came into this courtroom. And nothing that you didn't hear in this courtroom is to be considered. Can you follow that instruction?
Yes.
So, though, as you said to a question posed to you by Mr. Del Rionda, that you wouldn't erase the memory, can you decide not to consider that memory in coming up with a lawful verdict?
Yes.
Any concern with the able? I
Um,
cut you off, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I understand that if it's not presented here, then it's not evidence.
Though we appreciate that you have been very honest in telling us what you know about the case, and you've told us that you have a familiarity with a number of the facts, right? I mean, you know some of it.
What I've read or heard on TV, I don't know if that's everything. It could be far from everything. I don't know that.
And maybe that's the point. Do you acknowledge that what you've heard is at best incomplete?
I acknowledge that.
Do you acknowledge that what you've heard on TV may well be slanted by those who spoke it, like Channel 13 and the Atlanta Center?
Yes, I understand that could be true.
Okay. So, though you have I'm going to call it a working knowledge of some of what went on here, do you agree, can you agree, that that's going to be left aside and outside the courtroom, and that you'll only decide on the facts of the case that you hear here?
Yes.
And that you won't let any predispositions about guilt or innocence or facts invade you acting as an impartial juror?
Yes.
You certain?
I'm reasonably certain, yes.
Okay. Let's just say, for example, that you're now on the jury, we've heard the case, you're now deliberating, and some other juror says to you, you know, I remember something. I think that Trayvon Martin guy, I think he was a fighter, or I think he was this, or whatever it might be. But you know that that never came into the courtroom, that there was no evidence to support that. But some juror thinks they remember something from the Orlando Sentinel or from wherever. Would you be able to say to that juror that they're not supposed to consider that and that you're not going to?
Yes. If it's not presented as evidence, then it has no place.
Another example, just because part of this is we don't want jurors who live under rocks to come in and hear this case. We don't want jurors who have any particular connection to one side or the other. If you were George Zimmerman's cousin, you wouldn't be an appropriate juror because some biases we don't even want to ask you to get around. But right now, what we want to make sure is that what you heard on the outside, one, that it hasn't been this focus of yours. So has this case been a real focus of yours? Or just one of the tragic events that you've learned about and found out about over the past 16 months?
It's not been a focus of mine, but I do have to say that since I received the summons, I probably listened to Channel 13 more than I normally would have.
Okay. Same question then, to the extent that you've paid some more attention to this case in the past 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever you may have heard in the past 6 weeks, can you also agree not to consider that unless you hear it in the courtroom?
Yes.
Any concern with being able to leave what's outside the courtroom and only listen to what is presented through witnesses here in the courtroom?
I don't really have any concerns about that. I
Okay.
mean, not that I can think of at the moment.
You had stated I'm going to call it a predisposition that people are allowed to protect themselves. Is that your belief?
Yes,
And also that they're allowed to carry weapons.
lawfully.
Correct. Lawfully. Is that, tell me, do you think that that predisposition by you is going to lead you more in favor of George Zimmerman or opposed to Trayvon Martin, or is that just a belief that you have?
It's just a belief that I have. I think every American has that right.
Okay. To do it lawfully.
Yes.
If, for example, and again I'm going to make up a fact here, if, for example, you were to find out that for some reason George Zimmerman was not supposed to have a weapon, that he was not lawfully carrying a weapon, and the judge said that's a problem, would you consider that a problem too?
I would consider that a problem.
Okay. So you'll follow the judge's instructions, correct?
Yes.
And though you may have a predisposition that people are allowed to arm themselves, is your belief that that should only be done lawfully?
Yes.
And that you would hold people to the responsibility that they have in lawfully carrying their weapons
Absolutely.
and in lawfully using them?
Yes.
And if he wasn't lawfully using it, would you hold him responsible for that as well?
Well, if you're not supposed to be carrying a weapon and you're using it, then you're basically a criminal.
Mr. Rionda said a few different times that you have your mind made up. Is your mind, first of all, do you believe that your mind is made up on the ultimate issue of this case as to whether or not George Zimmerman is guilty or innocent? Guilty or not guilty?
I don't know
Okay.
all the facts. I don't know what the truth is. I know right now what I told you.
Right, right. And I think you said to Mr. Del Rionda that if he's going to convince you of guilt, he's going to have to prove guilt to you. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
And if he doesn't prove guilt to you, then he hasn't carried his burden. Is that also accurate?
Yes, it is.
The judge is going to tell you in your jury instructions that the state has to prove guilt by a term that we're not going to define here for you today, but it's called beyond a reasonable doubt. Whatever that is defined as by the court, she's going to give you that definition. Will you agree to hold to the state to that burden, whatever the judge says it is?
Yes.
Would you agree not to hold the state to any higher burden than what the judge tells you it is?
Yes.
On your questionnaire, I believe you had stated that you did have an opinion about the case, which we've spent some time talking about. Correct.
Yes.
But you also stated that, can you put aside your opinion and render a verdict based only on the evidence and law presented in this trial? Is that still your belief that you can do that?
I believe I can do that.
I might just have a moment, Your Honor. The last issue was the one that Mr. De La Rionda talked about at the end. And that's the concept of your obligation as a juror. Obviously, you've come here and sat with us now for almost an hour to talk about whether or not you can sit as a juror. The other part is the obligation to do that and the impact that has on you and your life. So I want to talk to you about that for just a couple minutes. One, it's a publicized matter that we're talking about here today, which is why we're talking to you. And that it also may take several weeks for us to take care of this case. And that if you're a juror, you'll be with us for those several weeks. Is there anything in your life, and we'll talk about sequestration in a minute, but anything in your life that would prohibit you from being with us for the next several weeks if you were selected as a juror?
No, there's not.
Okay.
I wish there was.
But you are being honest that there's not.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about the sequestration. Because of the publicity of the case, there may come a need, and we haven't decided this yet, but there may come a need to be so certain that outside influences don't impact on our jury that we keep you secure. And you're not spending the night in your own bed, as I think you had said it, for as long as we need you for the trial and deliberations. It's not, the judge will have some, if it happens, the judge will come up with some rules and there'll be contact with family members and whatnot. It's not, but it's an imposition. If you were picked as a juror, and further, if you were told that you will be sequestered, that we need to secure you as jurors to make sure that your work here is done right, I guess, is done in a way that protects the process. Is that something that you would be able to do if asked to do by the court?
I could do that if I was asked to do it. I really don't want to be separated from my husband.
Sure.
I really want to be in my own home. And I'm worried about my privacy after the trial.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I've heard that everybody's entitled to their 15 minutes of fame. I'd rather my 15 minutes be because I won the lottery and not because of this.
Right. But if called upon, if you had asked me if I want to spend 4 weeks not living at my house, I would say no. I don't think anyone would actually want to, unless I could pick the place, like Europe. But short of that, nobody wants to just up and interfere with their lives for a few weeks. But the question is, if you are asked to, if we say, you came here because you were summoned, you answered the questions because we asked you to, and now we've picked you as a juror and you have to spend some time away from home in order to properly discharge this duty. Is what you're saying to me is that you can do it, though you'd rather not?
Again, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You'll remain seated. Council, approach when you're ready. Grace. Will be a recess until 1 o'clock.